I worked at a cinema for a long time, 11 years to be precise. This was during my school years and even while I was in college. This was back in the day, the late 90s, when not everyone walked around with a phone in their pocket. The cinema I worked at wasn't one of those shiny new ones. It was built in 1985 and had a vintage charm to it. Inside there were 2 big screens. In between them was a place where we sold snacks and drinks. But we didn't have enough workers or money to open both screens and the snack counter at the same time. To manage this, we put up a big poster board to hide one screen and made sure everyone went to the other screen. One day, I got to work after school. I unlocked the main entrance and left the door open since I saw one of my team members, John, driving to the cinema. I went inside without waiting for him because I really needed to use the bathroom. We always told everyone to make sure the door was closed because sometimes moviegoers would arrive early. They'd sneak in and just hang out in the waiting area, especially when we had money out in the open. But that day, John forgot to close the door. When I was done and left the bathroom, I was headed upstairs to my office. As I was about to open the door, I saw a big man holding John. The man had a gun, and he was pointing it right at me. He shouted at me, "Get over here and open the safe!" But instead of panicking, I just greeted him with a smile. "Hey there, what's up?" I walked over, took John from him, and stood between the man with the gun and John, who was only 16 and looked scared. I told John to sit down in a corner of the room. Then I began to get ready to start my day, trying to act as if nothing was wrong. The room had 3 telephones. Suddenly, the robber yelled at John to take one of the phones off the wall. The man took all the money slips we had and even pulled out 2 of the phones from their places. Then I went to the safe and began to open it. Now, it was a Monday, which meant we hadn't yet given the extra money from the weekend to the security company that usually collected it. This meant there was a lot more money in the safe than usual. The robber threw a small sack at me and told me to fill it up with the cash. I slowly and calmly began to put all the money in. We also had 2 boxes full of coins. Each box had 500 worth of quarters. The robber wanted these as well, but they didn't fit in his bag. When he got impatient and pointed his gun at me again, I tried to put the coin boxes in, but ended up dropping them on his foot instead. Frustrated, he asked John to empty his backpack. John quickly hid his personal stuff under the desk, hoping the man wouldn't take them. I filled John's backpack with the money and stood up to hand it over to the man. I'm usually 5'8", but with the heels I was wearing that day, I seemed taller, almost 6. I'm not just tall, but I'm also pretty strong, despite my lean appearance. I stood tall, looking straight at this big man in front of me. I wasn't scared at all. He kept shouting, "Move back! Move back! Don't look at me!" But I just looked at him and thought, life is short. I just wanted him to know that he couldn't push us around. He kept telling me to move and wanted John to come to his side. I glared at him and he finally said, "I just need him to help me get out." As soon as they started moving, I quickly took off my shoes and ran to the room where we show the movies. Right away, I called the cops and told them we'd been robbed and that he had taken John. They were still somewhere in the building. John soon came running, looking for me. He said that the robber had a car waiting outside. It was red and a woman was driving it. The police arrived really fast in just about 5 minutes. But before the cops came, something strange happened. A worker from a nearby shop and a tech expert came to our cinema's door. They were knocking loudly, shouting, asking if we were okay. And then my co-manager was calling me while I was still on the line with the police. He sounded worried, saying he had a bad feeling and needed to be with us. "I'm driving right now. I'll be there in 5 minutes," he said. The worker from the nearby shop told me he felt he needed to come check on us. It was like I had sent out a signal or something. Then my mom called. She felt something was wrong and wanted to know if I was okay. A few weeks later, when I was in a meeting in Dallas, I got a message to call my mom and another number. It was the police in Arlington. They said they caught the man who robbed us and wanted me to come identify him. The other managers at the meeting told me to go and help the police. I recognized the robber right away when they showed him to me. Later, at the court trial, I had to stand and point him out. He said his gun was fake, but I told them I know a lot about guns. He finally admitted his guilt. They sentenced him to 25 years in prison, but he could be out in a year. I found out that he did another robbery a week after ours. I hope he learns his lesson while he's locked up. Through all of this, I realized that I can handle tough situations really well. John thanked me for standing up to the robber. I'm just glad we're both safe and that no one was hurt. I'm a 37-year-old lady who spent her younger years during the 90s and early 2000s in a neighborhood on the west side of Colorado. This place was home to a bunch of kids, many of whom were about my age. I had a best friend named Amy who lived in the house just opposite to mine. Every day after school, Amy and I would get together, playing games, chatting, and often cycling around our block. There were, however, a few mean kids in our area. They loved to make fun of us, sometimes even calling us names and laughing at our expense. It wasn't pleasant, but it was something we had gotten used to. One day, we saw a moving truck in our neighborhood. A new family was moving in. They had 2 kids. The children were different from the rest of us. They didn't go to the same school because their parents taught them at home. Looking back, I realized that maybe they hadn't met many other kids before coming here. That particular evening, almost every child in our neighborhood was out, riding their bicycles and having fun. Amy and I were enjoying our time too, but soon the group of mean kids started their usual taunts, this time aiming them at us. Just when things were getting really uncomfortable, the 2 new kids decided to join in on the fun and brought out their bikes. The focus shifted quickly. The mean kids found a new target. They started laughing at the new kids, pointing fingers and making jokes. I'm not proud of this, but in an attempt to divert attention from myself and Amy, I joined in on the taunting. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a woman, presumably the new kid's mom, sitting in their open garage, keeping a close watch on what was happening. A shiver went down my spine. I was afraid she'd come over and give us all a piece of her mind. Just as I was contemplating whether to leave, a car raced down the street. It was their dad. He parked the car so quickly and with so much force that it made me jump. My mind was racing. I was sure their mom had called him, maybe told him about us making fun of their kids. The sight of him getting out of his car made my heart race even faster. But instead of coming towards us, he headed straight to where his wife was. They started talking, but their words were too quiet for me to catch. However, their body language made it clear that they were in the middle of a serious argument. Fear took over. Not wanting to stick around and see how things would unfold, I got on my bike, urged Amy to do the same, and we pedaled away as quickly as our legs would allow, eager to find a safe hiding spot. When I got home, their mom was calling out to her kids, telling them it was time to go inside for the evening. I sneaked into my house, still scared, but as time passed, I started to feel better and slowly pushed the fear of getting into trouble out of my mind. I thought maybe the day's events were finally behind me. But my feeling of relief didn't last long. Just a couple of hours later, I saw flashing police lights from my living room window. There were several police cars parked outside our new neighbor's home. My parents and my big brother, Jake, all stood by the window, staring out and trying to understand what was happening. At first, my young mind thought maybe the parents had called the police on us because we had made fun of their kids. But oddly, no police officer came to talk to my parents or any other family in the neighborhood. The next morning, while waiting for the school bus, everyone was buzzing with gossip. Some kids were saying that the family had ties to gangs, or that there was a big fight at their house, or even scarier stories that I didn't want to think about. It wasn't until I was a teenager that I got to know the true, sad story of that night. The mom and dad, who had just moved into our neighborhood, were struggling with money. On top of that, the mom wanted to leave the marriage. That night, after letting her kids play outside with all of us, she had a big argument with the dad. It got so bad that the dad went to his car, took out a gun, and tragically took his own life. Because of the gunshot, many police officers and medical teams were called to the scene, but by the time they got there, it was too late for the dad. Now that I'm older, I think about that family a lot. It's heartbreaking. Those innocent kids. How would the mom explain such a thing to them? What words could she possibly use? I never saw those kids again after that night, but their faces are etched in my memory. It's important to remember that mental well-being is crucial. If someone you know, or even you, is going through a tough time, it's important to talk and seek help. Thanks for letting me share this with you. For starters, I'm a 26-year-old lady who lives near a big city called Memphis in Tennessee. I often drive to the eastern part of Tennessee. Sometimes it's to see my boyfriend Tom when he's away for work. At other times, it's to meet up with my Tennessee Jeep group. We are a bunch of friends who love driving our Jeeps, especially in the hilly areas. So on this trip, I had plans to do both of those things. Tom was staying in a different city called Nashville, and I thought it would be fun to surprise him. So I decided to make the 3-4-hour journey to spend the weekend with him. And while he'd be at work during the daytime, I planned to hang out with my Jeep friends. The drive was all right. The roads were clear, and I enjoyed the drive, listening to my favorite songs. As I got closer to Nashville, about an hour away, I thought about stopping, maybe to use the bathroom or grab some snacks. But something told me to keep going, and I'm really grateful I did. I'll explain why. Once I reached the hotel in Nashville, I parked my Jeep. Before getting out, I always move my safety gun from the car's glove box to a small pouch I wear, just to be safe, you know? I grabbed my bags and walked into the hotel. It was pretty late, maybe around midnight. The room Tom had booked was like a mini apartment. The moment you enter, there's a small kitchen area on the right side with a fridge and a place to cook. On the left, there was a closet and a bathroom. Behind the bathroom was our bed. We liked that bed because it felt safer since it was away from the main door. I went up to Tom's room. He was waiting for me and seemed happy to see me. After some chit-chat, I decided to freshen up, so I took a quick shower. Once done, I changed into my night clothes and joined Tom in bed. It felt so good to be close to him since he had been traveling a lot for work. But as we were settling down, we suddenly heard some noises. It sounded like people running and shouting. It was weird since it was so late at night. We thought maybe it was some children playing in the hallway, but then we remembered it was midnight. Maybe the sounds were from far away and that's why they weren't too loud. We weren't sure, but it felt odd. Lying in bed, Tom and I were suddenly silent, just listening closely. After a few moments, we heard a loud noise, kind of like a firecracker. At first, we were confused, not really understanding what it was. But then we heard it again. Instantly, Tom pushed me off the bed to the floor to keep me safe. We realized that someone was shooting right outside our door. Staying low on the ground, we both took out our safety guns, ready to protect ourselves if needed. We had no clue what was happening outside, so all we could do was wait and stay quiet. After what felt like hours, but was probably only a few minutes, Tom called the hotel's reception. They told him that the police were on their way. Both of us stayed near the window, peeking out to see if we could understand what was happening outside. I should mention I won't say which hotel this was. Honestly, I can't even recall its name, but I share this tale to emphasize how important it is to have something to defend yourself with. Having my safety gun with me gave me some comfort. You really can't predict when you might need it. After a while, we saw several police cars outside blocking the hotel's entrance. There was also a big open space opposite the hotel, and we saw officers looking around there too. It was a tense scene. We saw paramedics wheeling out a stretcher with a covered body. It was clear someone had been hurt, or worse. Then we heard loud voices outside our room door. At first we were scared, but soon we realized it was the police checking on the hotel guests. They were knocking on each door, ensuring everyone was okay. We told them we were fine. This went on for several hours. By the time the police wrapped up, the sun was up, and Tom had to leave for work. I was left alone in the room, still shaken. My sister-in-law, Jane, came to keep me company. She stayed with me until Tom and his brother, Mike, returned from work. The room felt heavy. None of us felt like talking about work or anything ordinary. We all just chatted about the scary incident, about the bullet marks we noticed in the corridor, and the bloodstains we saw near the stairway door. It was so close to our room, which made it even scarier. All of us kept thinking about how different things might have been if I'd taken that bathroom break during my drive. Maybe I would have been right in the middle of the chaos. Neither Tom nor I slept much that weekend. To this day, we get anxious staying in hotels. It was a truly terrifying experience. We later found out that the shooter was the person taken away on the stretcher. There were rumors that another guest had stopped the shooter, but we never found out if that was true. Most of what we learned was through hearsay from other guests and hotel staff. This incident is a reminder of how unpredictable life can be. From that day on, I decided that when driving, I would continue without stopping unless I absolutely had to.